Greetings, LEGO fans, and welcome to LEGO Island. Well, the first half of it at least.
All's quiet on the eastern side of the island.
That's right, I'm already halfway through the enormous task of recreating the original LEGO Island map in real LEGO. In a previous video, I walked through how I made the buildings and minifigures from the classic 1997 game. But now I'm gonna take you brick by brick on a journey through the creation of the island itself. So, let's jump right into how I made this real-world recreation of a timeless classic a reality. Before I did anything for this gargantuan project, I knew I needed to decide on the scale for the island. If I built everything at the exact size as the game, it would be impractically large and mostly empty space. After laying all the buildings out on the pool table and vacillating over this decision for far too long, I settled on a width of 6 base plates, or 60 inches, and a length of 9 base plates, or 90 inches. This will allow plenty of room for all of the buildings and landscaping elements without taking up tons of unnecessary space. This size turned out to be perfect too. As the ping pong topper for my pool table, the only surface in my house big enough to accommodate this monstrosity is exactly 60 inches wide. Next, I had to get my hands on all the bricks necessary to bring this island to life. I got really lucky in this respect. A good friend of mine, who was a LEGO store employee, offered the use of his 50% discount, which, as it turns out, works for LEGO's online pick-a-brick service. So I absolutely loaded up on dark tan rock panels and slopes, along with green and gray 16x16 plates and a bunch of other elements I thought I'd need. It was all guesswork at this point, as he was quitting at the end of that month and I didn't really have time to plan anything. But since I'm much more of a work with what you've got kind of person rather than a meticulous planner, this was my style anyway. In addition to that absolute lifesaver, both of my local Bricks and Minifigs locations were offering an Easter bulk bucket special, where you can fill up an entire bucket for $30 initially and then get unlimited refills for $12.50 a pop until June. There were times when I'd go in just about daily to fill up another bucket, and it was a huge help for this project. Of course, there were also some more specialized retired items I needed to order directly on Bricklink. The most expensive and hardest to find were the classic LEGO palm trees that dot the island. While the leaves are pretty affordable still, the individual pegs and bases for these things are about $1 a piece. So for the over 20 palm trees I counted on the island, that really added up. But since these remain my favorite LEGO palm trees to date, I didn't mind gathering up a sizable collection of them. A similar but much less expensive bit of foliage was the flowers. Much like with the palm trees, I just walked around the island in the game itself, counted how many of each color there were, and ordered that amount, plus a few more just in case. I'll tell you what, having the game available in a web browser as a quick reference was a godsend. Finally, I needed base plates, and a lot of them. I was lucky enough to find a Bricklink seller with the exact right amount of blue ones I'd need for the entire border of the island, and at a heavily discounted price. For the rest of the base plates on the interior, I just poached from some of my old projects. And with all of that in place, it was time to start building. It seemed fitting to start at the information center and build out from there. Initially, I was trying to make the mountain the building sits on much more multicolored and textured and covered in plants, but I didn't really like how that was looking. So, in the interest of simplicity and game accuracy, I eventually just kept it all uniformly dark tan, or sand yellow as LEGO officially calls it. It turns out that building a 32x32 square of what the LEGO community calls big ugly rock panels, or burps, gives you a really sturdy platform, requiring very little supplemental support. For the pathway leading up to the information center from the park, I had a decision to make that would affect the rest of the island. Are the pathways across the island going to be brown like they are in the opening animation, or dark red like they are in the gameplay? I made the aesthetic decision of sticking with the animation on this one, as I think brown makes a bit more logical sense and is frankly easier to find. My philosophy going forward, with the many inconsistencies between the animation and the gameplay, was just to pick and choose what I liked better or found more convenient, as I consider both versions to be perfectly viable references. The only other way to access the information center in the game is by the road, which is supported on this side by what looks like a giant concrete pillar. I built the beginnings of it on this module with plans to join it up to the ramp on another. Speaking of modules, I'm building the whole island on the MILS system, which stands for Modular Integrated Landscaping System, which offers both stability and modularity by building a layer of brick and plate on top of a base plate, connected by technicals and pins on each side. If I ever have a hope of transporting this whole thing to a LEGO convention, this is an absolute necessity, as I can easily break it all down and click it back together on site. I elected to have the lowest parts of the island at the 1 brick level with the water at the base plate level, which wound up working really well. The largest module turned out to be the first one I built, which combines the information center and the hospital and is 3 full base plates wide. The way it ended up being laid out, it couldn't really be split into anything smaller. The information center sits at 3 burps high, while the hospital sits at 1 burp high, built up to those heights with the MILS framework underneath. Even at this scale, there was still plenty of room for the buildings, their landscaping, and the narrow channel of water between them. Now, Enter and Return can get up to their usual shenanigans in full context,
Can't go without the shark!
while the Infomaniac can stand on his high perch overlooking the island. The next module is made up of 2 base plates and is the wobbliest of the bunch, as it's mostly water, all surrounding the Brickster's jail cell. It clicks neatly into the side of the first module and gets us almost to full island width. Due to space constraints, the bridge leading to the Brickster had to be shortened a bit, but it still follows the spirit of what's seen in the game. There's barely enough space for the helicopter as it currently stands, so I might bump out that section just a bit so it's less snug. The edge of this module is the start of the angled peninsula where the police station sits, so this area will make a bit more sense as the other parts are added. Speaking of which, the next 2 modules complete that peninsula, allowing the police station, complete with its original base plate, to sit at a perfect 45-degree angle on top. Being a bit intimidated by this angle at first, I was sorely tempted just to put the police station at a right angle, but this turned out to be much easier than I thought, and it looks so much more true to the game. Composed of mostly corner slopes and plates, with the intention of adding some 2x2 wedge cut pieces to make the grass less stair-steppy, this makes a sturdy base for the station, and a few 1x1 plates on the perimeter hold it in place quite firmly. The next module is one of my favorites, and one of the biggest challenges of the build up to this point, the ramp leading up to the information center. Regular 16x16 road plates felt much too wide for this, so I made my own 12-stud wide road, strongly supported with plates underneath. This makes the whole ramp easily removable and requires very little support. Slotting in right next to the road section from the information center, I think it does a pretty good job of making a continuous-looking structure that really sits on 2 different modules. Little details like the goblet lights on the center pillar were a joy to add, and the pathways winding underneath the ramp were made using simple dark gray tiles and 45-degree wedge-cut elements. These same elements were also used to perfectly meet up with the angled police station. And this all leads us to the park, where the flying Legondos do their tricks and the Lego Bobs theoretically sing their dulcet tones. Built on 2 16x32 modules, this is probably where I saved the most space, as the park in the gameplay is absolutely massive and empty, while in the animation it's much more compressed. Naturally, I went the animation route, which was far more practical for a real Lego build. To fill out the first full rectangle we've gotten up to this point is just a piece of road that finishes the hospital lot and reaches the rocky edge of the island. From this point, the shapes are much more straightforward, so modules can be assembled in straight rows and then clicked to the existing ones. As such, this first new row extends from shore to shore, with the most notable element being the gas station. I initially wondered if I'd have to ditch the original base plate, but it turns out that you can just set the base plate on top of the mill's framework and then just add some connecting plates to keep it in place. This was, again, way easier than I anticipated, and allowed me to keep all of the original base plates from the sets. There were also some changes in elevation necessary here, which were accomplished by just letting the road plates sit on top of the split-level frameworks underneath. And this is actually way sturdier than it seems, and has already stood up to hours of play by my 7-year-old. The next full row of modules has a lot more action going on, with the beginnings of the racetrack, the bank, and the surf shack all making their appearances. On the northern side, we have yet another elevation change, this one more gradual, covering 2 road plates this time, while the opposing shore really starts making the beach take shape, with its yellow pathways leading to the shack. The water here and all around the island is created with a combination of 1x1 slopes and 1x1 tiles in trans blue, which gives some color variation from the base plate and the illusion of little waves and ripples in the water. And the final 2 rows bring us to the amount I've completed to this point, adding the real meat of the Octon racetrack, the pizzeria, and the little peninsula on the south end of the island. The ramps on the racetrack were built very much the same way as the information center ramp, but at a much smaller scale. The railings on the bridge section of the track are taken straight from the game, once again using upside-down goblet elements as lights, which I find super charming. The angle of the pizzeria was accomplished by once again using 2x2 wedge cut pieces on the edges of the road and then just setting the building against it, with the help of some sticky tack underneath to keep it in place. Even the famous jukebox is there, inspiring one of its many dance parties. I haven't made the decals for the jukebox yet, but I plan to once again use the design from the game to make appropriate stickers for it. And that's what I've got so far. Looking at the full map of the island, I'm definitely more than halfway, but as far as build time, I think I've got my work cut out for me with the residential mountain and the homage to the interior portions of the racetrack coming up. I can't wait to dive into that though, and the final update to this project will be here before you know it. If you're interested in seeing the completed build in person, it'll be on display at the Utah Brick Slopes Convention this coming August. If you're in the area, I hope to see you there. Shout out to the members of the Brick Guild who have helped make this crazy project possible. If you'd like to chip in, consider becoming a member for as little as $1 a month. And until next time, I'm gonna keep building, and I hope you do too.